Hello, my name is Katie Leone and I am Clean Air Cool Planet's Charting Emissions from Food Service Fellow for the summer of 2013. The purpose of this presentation is to introduce you to some basic concepts of life cycle analyses and to talk about food's environmental impact. It is intended to help food service professionals and institutional staff members as well as students understand how they can improve the sustainability of food systems at their institutions. Everything has a life cycle, which is a way of measuring environmental impacts. By looking at a group of life cycles simultaneously, we can determine the total greenhouse gas emissions of the entire life of a product. Our total greenhouse gas emissions are referred to as the carbon footprint. This is an important indicator of how environmentally friendly a food item or product is because greenhouse gases contribute significantly to climate change. The term carbon footprint can be a little misleading. Carbon footprints consider much more than the amount of carbon a product or process releases. In fact, a carbon footprint accounts for all greenhouse gases with high global warming potential. These include the 8 gases listed on this slide. Each of these are converted into their carbon equivalent so that they are expressed in the footprint. Carbon footprints communicate the amount of greenhouse gases a product or process emits. Maintaining the balance of greenhouse gases is crucial because they affect the Earth's temperature. Anthropogenic or human-produced greenhouse gas emissions have skyrocketed since the Industrial Revolution. At current consumption levels, we will need 3 planets to sustain our needs by 2050. We are at a critical crossroads in human history. The good news is that municipalities, institutions, and businesses have recognized this critical crossroads. More and more are conducting life cycle analysis studies, completing greenhouse gas audits, and creating climate action plans to reduce their carbon emissions. So what is a life cycle analysis? A life cycle analysis is sometimes referred to as a cradle-to-grave assessment. They follow a product from the beginning to the end of its life. Throughout the product's life, energy inputs and outputs are accounted for, and their environmental impacts are measured. A life cycle analysis attempts to analyze a system holistically. Doing so helps us understand its contribution to global warming and natural resource depletion. It also helps us in assessing economic impacts so that companies, communities, and industries can strategically plan for sustainability. The first step in greenhouse gas or carbon accounting is to establish the boundaries of what the audit will include. Scope 1 emissions are those directly created by the buildings and vehicles that the organization owns. Scope 2 emissions are from purchased sources of energy such as electricity, heat, or steam and are used directly to power buildings and the vehicle fleet. All other purchased energy sources are accounted for in Scope 3. Scope 3 emissions are the hardest to track because they come from purchased goods and services. This image shows common Scope 3 considerations such as contracted work, employee travel, waste removal, and financial investments. Universities would include food in their Scope 3 emissions. Due to the complexities part and parcel to tracking a system's life cycle and conducting a carbon audit, it is important for organizations to define their methods and scopes at the beginning of a greenhouse gas audit. So why are doing greenhouse gases important? Humans' health, happiness, and well-being is linked to that of the planet's. Life cycle analyses are useful and important tools for improving businesses and communities' operations in order to decrease their impacts on the environment. In fact, people living in countries with smaller carbon footprints report higher levels of satisfaction and happiness than those in countries with large carbon footprints. Finding innovative, energy-efficient solutions to meet our present and future needs has the greatest potential for creating healthy and thriving societies. The footprint of food, which is sometimes referred to as a food print, is particularly important to understand. It has an enormous impact on the planet. At present, global food production releases 17,000 megatons of CO2 into the atmosphere per year. That's a huge number. Let's put it into context. 1,000 tons is equal to 1 kiloton, which has a greater volume than the Statue of Liberty. 17 kilotons is equal to 17,000 tons, an amount larger than 17 Statues of Liberties. Now imagine 17 Statue of Liberties 1,000,000 more times, and that is the amount of carbon that the food system emits annually. That much carbon, expressed in gasoline, would enable you to drive around the world's equator 2.5 billion times in a Mini Cooper. While most people understand that driving their car contributes to climate change, many do not make the connection between the food on their plate to the environment. However, agriculture produces more greenhouse gases than transportation globally. In the United States, runoff from fertilizer and animal wastes are a major cause for concern. They are the byproducts of concentrated animal feeding operations, also known as CAFOs. And runoffs from these CAFOs has created a dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico, which is the size of the state of New Jersey. Multi-stakeholder coalitions and individuals will need to work together to solve these pressing global issues. Life cycle analyses and food prints are one tool that will assist in this process. So let's talk a little bit about how people are using these tools. Communities are beginning to use life cycle analyses and conducting footprint studies. For example, the city of Oxford, London, was the first to calculate its total footprint. From doing so, they discovered that shifting consumer purchasing and behaviors while growing different foods on nearby farms would allow them to reduce their carbon emissions by 40%. Companies have also begun using food prints to assess their sustainability. As you can see from Annie's Homegrown's life cycle analysis, on-farm production causes the highest environmental impact for this company. From knowing this, they can create strategies to reduce on-farm greenhouse gas emissions. Universities, with their educational mission, and other institutional food service locations can also do their part. Clean Air Cool Planet's charting emission from food service, or chefs, helps schools increase awareness about their carbon footprint. It sparks conversations between different people on campuses, such as dining hall professionals, university staff, faculty, and students. Universities that have used chefs were able to identify the amount of high and low carbon intensity foods that they were purchasing. With this knowledge, they can work towards limiting the high carbon purchases and increasing their use of low carbon alternatives. Knowledge is power, but in the case of food, it isn't enough. Studies have shown that knowledge alone does not change individuals' behavior. People eat what is tasty, convenient, and affordable. Therefore, the food service industry has a responsibility to develop delicious offerings that are healthful and sustainable while gradually phasing out foods with high negative impacts. We covered some really depressing statistics so far in this presentation, but let's not lose hope. There are many doable projects that food service can take on and numerous ways to inspire students to get involved. The rest of this presentation will offer solutions. Increasing local purchasing and offering vegetarian fare are two of the easiest ways to get started. The resources listed on this slide lay out strategies for success, recommend best practices, and highlight model programs for local purchasing. In addition to these guides, local resources may be available in your community. Try searching the web to see if there is a Buy Fresh, Buy Local campaign near you, and search for seasonal food buying guides in your area. Don't have a cow. Meat tastes great, but vegetarian food can be equally delicious, filling, and nutritious. There are a number of great resources where you can find vegetarian recipes. For example, the Meatless Monday website has a free vegetarian cookbook. Jamie Oliver's School Food Revolution also provides meat-free recipes for food service, and the Vegetarian Resource Group and Center for Science in the Public Interest are other excellent websites to look at for ideas. While not designed specifically for food service, the Seasonal Food Guide at Epicurious, the Vegan Gallery on Foodgawker, and the Vegetarian Recipes on All Recipes might spark some creative and tasty ideas. Some of the best vegetarian recipes come from students. Try having a vegan focus group to see how your dining hall is meeting their needs and to share ideas. After you make changes, track progress by looking at sales numbers and consider doing a follow-up survey. To label or not to label, this is a big debate. Don't preach to the choir. It might seem counterintuitive, but labeling items as vegetarian may do more harm than good. Market research shows that when a vegan label is hidden on the back of a grocery store product, its sales increase. People who already practice vegan or vegetarianism know what to look for and will scrutinize campus food and read ingredient labels without being prompted. Food service's goal should be to provide vegetarian and vegan offerings so appealing and appetizing that carnivorous students will want to choose them over meat offerings. At the same time, the university has a responsibility to educate students about making dietary decisions that will be good for their health and the planet. You'll have to evaluate the culture at your institution and decide what is best for your schools. At some schools, attempting to win over meat-loving students' taste buds might be the most effective strategies, but at other locations, a label might be very appropriate. Making changes does not mean that students and dining halls need to serve and eat 100% local and vegetarian foods at every meal. Even small changes add up to make a big difference. Students and institutions should explore what changes will work for them and take small steps. After all, it is a slow food revolution. So what next? We already talked about serving more vegetarian and local fare, but using Clean Air Cool Planet's charting emissions from food service tool can help you get a specific idea of what you could do at your site to make the best choices. If you need more tips and resources on engaging students at your institution, Clean Air Cool Planet has also released a social media guide. If you would like to have access to this guide, please click on the link. I hope that this PowerPoint sparked your interest in greenhouse gas reduction efforts and food printing. Here are a list of some additional websites that you might want to check out. If you have any questions about this presentation or would like to use Chef's or our social media guide at your institution, please contact us. Thanks again for taking the time to listen, and if you are interested in further resources, take some screenshots now. Here are the references. Thanks very much. Have a good day.